Hello guys, the animation adaptation of Logi's story made by Bilibili and YHKT, known amongst Chinese three-body fans as 异化三体, has long been ridiculed as a complete failure. Bilibili is a video platform that is kind of like YouTube in China, and it invested in this animation. 异化KTN is the anime producing company. The much-anticipated show was released around Chinese New Year in early 2023. When it was first aired, I watched the first 7 episodes and made 7 roasting videos. Those roasting videos are in Chinese. You can check them out in my Chinese channel, 全整活. I'll put the links at the description. Check them out if you are interested. I watched only 7 episodes because by that far, I decided not to waste any more time on it. In the past few days, I picked up where I left the show 2 years ago and finished the entire 15 episodes. I said my roasting videos are better than the anime itself. Now I still stand with that statement. Though I must say it got a little bit better than the first 7 episodes, and some of the outrageously ridiculous storyline in the first half of the season was somehow remedied. And then it got worse again, and worse and worse. There are 2 things that the show actually does well, or at least I can say the writers know where they're going, and what they're trying to do is legitimate. The first thing is the adaptation of Zhuang Yan's storyline. For everything about Zhuang Yan and her story with Luoji, as described in the book, please see my last video. In the anime, Zhuang Yan is someone that you just couldn't hate. She is innocent, kind-hearted, and sweet, as described in the book. The show enriched her character a lot. In the show, she definitely is not a spy. She is more outspoken than in the book. She actually questions whether Luoji is doing his war officer job and whether they can really be happy in this crisis. And she does not fall in love with Luoji for nothing. In the book, she seems to conveniently fall in love with Luoji without him doing anything to win her love. In the show, she declares her intention to leave him when she realizes that her being there is not helping him, and that Luoji is really just pursuing personal happiness. To this point, it is all good as far as the love story between the two is concerned. It is even better than the original book, in that the feelings between the two and the complexity of their relationship is addressed in more detail. Their relationship is more complex than a common romance, and it should be, because Luoji is a war officer and because humanity is faced with this transparent threat. In this regard, the interactions between the gear and the war officer in the anime feels more at place than in the book. But then, just as Zhuang Yan declares that she is to leave him, Luoji miraculously produces an engagement ring from his pocket and says he must give it to her before she leaves. Well, it is way too early, for at this point they are not even dating yet. Then, out of the blue, Zhuang Yan and Luoji are caught in an emergency situation, and over the next few hours, they each save each other's lives for several times. After this, of course, Zhuang Yan says yes to Luoji's proposal. It is all too convenient and cliché, but still I'm gonna give the anime that it does work up the romance story between Luoji and Zhuang Yan, and that it makes Zhuang Yan more of a real down-to-earth character. The other thing that it does well is the adaptation of Frederick Tyler's story. Still, at least the purpose is legitimate. In the book, Tyler's suicide comes just a little bit sudden, because we would expect a war officer to be stronger or more resilient than that. The 异化三体 anime enriches Tyler's character and prepares the audience for his suicide in 2 aspects. One aspect is his work. A lot of details are given on his ball lining experiments, including twists that are explained by Tyler's wall breaker at the end of the season storyline. The other aspect is his personal life. We have this character that is not there in the book, a PhD scientist named Elena, who presides over the technical part of Tyler's project. Tyler would often argue with Elena and criticize her for being too soft and overly concerned with safety. In their experiment in space, Tyler harshly scolds her for being too soft and demands to put the ball lining at the highest energy level, and this causes the catastrophe. In the catastrophe, Elena gives her life in her attempt to push the quantum presence out of the way to save the space station, and only after that are we told that she is actually Tyler's daughter. Though the story is a bit contrived, it makes sense, because for Tyler, instead of protecting his daughter, the most important person in his life, his plan actually gets her killed is a strong enough reason for him to kill himself. The burden to continue to go ahead, knowing that he would have to kill more, is just too much. The show also highlights the dilemma Tyler is in as the war officer. He has to push forward his plan, but he cannot explain to others the decisions he makes and why he insists on doing stuff the way he wants. But then the technical stuff concerning Tyler's plan, how his ball lightning experiment in space causes that big catastrophe, Elena's efforts to remedy that catastrophe, and that big catastrophe itself are all loose in the scientific sense. Basically, science is thrown out of the window.
Science, right? Science is
Science, the
high-level physics, like
scientific ideas, scientists.
you throw science out the window, things.
That's it.
The show producers make it look like things could go down that way, but it actually takes only a second to realize that none of those things hold water. For instance, they are constantly talking about the energy level of the ball lightning and the size of the ball lightning as if this is a big deal. And Tyler is going after higher energy level and bigger size, while Elena, being the voice of reason, is constantly reminding him of safety. I understand the writers are trying to build this conflict between striving for the big and unimaginable, which is what the warfacer is supposed to do, and the need for safety, which can only be sacrificed if the warfacer is to push forward their plan. In this struggle, Tyler ends up having his daughter killed, and the dilemma of pushing forward a plan that would kill people is made so evident that it is already happening. But the thing is, the scientific stuff behind the story does not hold water. First, there's this big quantum presence that would diffuse and turn everyone in its path into ghosts. But it's never explained on the scientific level how it comes to be. Or if the show did, I didn't get it. Like, what is this big quantum presence? How does the ball lightning bring about it? How does this thing come into being? We are told by the ghastly faces of these characters that something has gone terribly wrong. But what went wrong exactly, and what is at stake exactly? Liu Cixin's original novella Ball Lightning starts with the fantastical idea that a ball lightning is a macroelectron. The setting of the story, that is, ball lightning is a macroelectron, is imagined and fantastical, but everything down the road is deduced from this idea, and all the deduction is scientifically solid. That is the style of Liu Cixin. His sci-fi idea is imagined, but his writing and storytelling is realistic. His works are actually typical examples of literary realism. The anime, however, goes in the opposite direction. Liu Cixin comes up with a sci-fi idea and deduces how the story would go if the idea is true. The anime, on the other hand, decides how it wants the story to go and then makes up a hell lot of scientific stuff to complete the story. And the scientific stuff it makes up does not have to make sense at all. And it is so easy to make up such stuff when you have this quantum thing. In Chinese, we have a saying, 遇事不决，量子力学. Literally, if you don't know what to do, use quantum mechanics. The saying mocks the fact that many sci-fi works explain the supernatural phenomena they write about with quantum mechanics, because few people really understand quantum mechanics, so they use it to explain everything. This is what the anime is doing. It's like once you are in the quantum realm, anything can happen, and you don't have to explain. This actually takes all the sci-fi fun away from the story. The show becomes a pile of seemingly urgent activities, but without real sense of urgency or suspense. Also, about the death of Elena, it would be nice if she dies after saving people, or that she decides to save people with the cost of her life. That would make her sacrifice worthwhile. But in the show, she goes on with her suicidal actions even after it is clear that her efforts would be futile, and her sacrifice was literally for nothing. That is not heroic. But we know the anime producers just need her to die a sympathy-inducing death, because that is to be the big blow to Tyler. The structure of the season is problematic. It is definitely the result of some sort of compromise. When the show was not aired, Three-Body fans presumed this first season of the animation would end at Luoji realizing the true picture of the universe as he looked up at the starry sky from the bottom of the frozen lake, because this is clearly indicated in one of the trailers. But it does not. With 15 episodes, it does not even go to that point. The show ends at Frederick Tyler killing himself, and Luoji realizing the gravity of everything that comes with being a warfacer, with the pregnant Zhuangyan looking at him by the window. And this ending happens not at the 15th episode at the end of the season, it happens early on in the 11th episode. Episode 10 tells us that this big quantum presence would cause a huge disaster. Then on to episode 11, we are already at the aftermath of the catastrophe. Luoji receives Tyler at his lakeside mansion and talks with him before Tyler commits suicide. The talk between the two, especially Tyler's lines, are good, and Tyler's more hysterical than described in the book. Then the episode ends with the worried Zhuangyan standing at the window after Tyler kills himself, and Said's speech to reignite people's faith in the Warfacer project and their confidence in this war. It is also in this speech that we are told Elena was Tyler's daughter. This would actually be a sort of good end to the season, for the audience would be left to wonder what to do next when everything seems to be falling apart. But then, from the next episode to the last one, we're again taken back to the quantum catastrophe. The anime uses these last 4 episodes to tell how all these people work together to remedy the catastrophe, and the purpose is to establish Luoji as a sort of hero. But since we already know that the matter would be resolved and Luoji and Zhuangyan would survive it, viewers are basically forced to sit through the entire process already knowing the end. The story in these last episodes, that is this fight against this big quantum presence, is completely created by the anime. Lengthy and uninteresting, it does not explore the potential of the ingenious story of the original work, and reduces itself to the cliché story of a couple saving each other and the hero proving himself to be somewhat worthy. The show also tries to make Secretary General Sai a richer character than in the book, by highlighting her sense of responsibility, the difficult decisions she'd have to make, and her willingness to be held accountable if things go wrong. Well, I guess it is done fairly well, and that speech at the end of episode 11 is actually very good. Alright, so in this video I tried my best to find stuff that is worthy in this anime. At the end of the day, it is still a lousy show. Plot-wise, it seems to be for book fans, since it is made in such a way that people who have not read the book wouldn't understand it. It starts with the Panama scene and expects viewers to know wangmiao and nanomaterial without half a word of introduction to them. But then it pays no respect to the original book. It lacks the subtlety and simplicity of the original book. It's so full of cliches and trashy elements that those who've read the book would be puzzled by it too. If you are a book fan, you could still watch it just for the sake of watching it, because you know 3-body fans are crazy and would watch any adaptation however loosely they are based on the books. I'm one of these fans. In fact, this is what you see when you turn on the show in Bilibili. The number of flying comments is crazy, but this just tells us how popular the books are, not how good the show is. But if you happen to have watched it without reading the books, please be reminded that the anime is not the book. The book is a totally different thing in a totally different style. Please read the books. Alright, I guess that's all for today. I will make more videos on the 3-body problem trilogy and sci-fi works that I love. See you next time.